All right, should be recording. All right, let's get started. We're not waiting for anybody. This is our third parent support night presentation for our Toolbox, Managing Emotions. I'm Sarah Chandler. I'm a school counselor at Jamaica and Havasu High.
I'm Marty Miller. I'm the school counselor and I cover Smoke Tree Elementary and Nautilus Elementary.
And I'm Susie Martin and I'm the school counselor at Starline Elementary in Oro Grande.
All right. So our first tool that we're talking about this time is our garbage can tool. We have a tagline for each tool. This one is, I let the little things go. And this tool basically is to help remind students that we don't have to take everything personally. We can respond, with what we do with other people's words and actions, how we feel. Sometimes the best choice for us at school and even at home, anywhere, is to throw harmful words away. And what we would say, in the class is, some behaviors, words are like trash. They're yucky. Sometimes they're rude. They're inappropriate, things that we shouldn't be doing or saying at school or at home. And so those are little things that we can throw away and forget about. And the garbage can tool is another one of our word tools. And so some behaviors or, things that are said are not possible to just walk away from. They need further explanation. We need to get help, to help resolve them, especially at school. And so for one of the lessons, we asked the students to give us examples of big things and little things that happen, whether it's at school or at home. And so a lot of the times students will put situations in the big thing column when they feel disrespected, when their feelings are hurt. And so we want to talk about, we made a list of what are some big and some small things. So a lot of small things, an accident. We want to find out what the difference is between something that is done on accident versus something that's done purposely. How can we tell? So if it's an accident, somebody bumps into us in line at school. They didn't do it on purpose. Most of the time, student or whoever, will turn around and say sorry. We're not going to make a big deal out of something like that. We're just going to throw it in the garbage can, keep walking. And we also talked about the differences between a little thing and the big things. And some things aren't that easy to just walk away from. Sometimes children need a little intervention at school or at home. So we talk with our students about impersonal actions. So things that occur on accident, like we talked about, or mistakes that are made that are unintentional. Those are little things. And it's going to be harder for a child who can't just let little things go, who take things personally. And, little things, we can walk by, we can ignore. I told the students, just think in our heads, say, yeah, whatever, and walk on by. We're not even going to make, a bigger situation out of it. If it's things that, people are trying to hurt our feelings or, make fun of us, we need to understand that, we don't believe those things. We know those things aren't true. So we're going to throw them in the garbage. And we always want to also ask why it's important to get help when we're dealing with big things. If somebody is hands-on at school, who can help us at school or at home, when something big arises. And so we also discussed that in class. They were, teacher, of course, is another one, principal, anybody, if we're outside and something happens, any adult outside, instead of getting angry, making a bigger situation out of what it is, maybe putting our hands on that other student, us now getting in trouble, that other student getting in trouble, we're going to just instead take the approach and go to an adult and see if they can help solve the situation first. And we also, with this tool, we talk about, what's garbage? What do we do with it when we don't want it anymore? When we throw it away, we don't go back, and take garbage out of the trash can. And sometimes people say or do mean things because they're upset at someone or something else, and so they take it out on other people. And so a really good quote that we had that we tell the students is, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And for that, instance, if somebody is taking something out on you, doesn't mean that they're mad at us, right? Or they don't like us, or they don't want to be friends with us anymore. They're just upset at something else. So that's where our empathy tool will also come in, trying to understand why they're upset at something and taking it out on us and not taking it personally. And small irritations, we're going to put it in the garbage can. We're going to forget about them. We're going to continue doing what we're doing, our homework, our lesson, playing at recess, swimming, eating our dinner if we're at home and the sibling is irritating us. And so with this, we discuss how feelings that don't go away, they need to be dealt with and worked through, or else that causes it, to just stay in here, and then all of a sudden it's just going to blow up and erupt. We need to talk to somebody, whoever it is, whoever they feel comfortable talking to, whether it's mom or dad, whether it's teachers, whether it's the parapro that's on campus, whether it's the librarian, and then, working it out respectfully with the person who might have said something that was offensive, or might have said something that, they were trying to hurt your feelings. But not everything that happens to us is personal. Not everything that happens is something that we need to take personally. And then I also have a little video here. I'll play it now so you guys can see.
It's not that easy.
Oh, not this one.
Grammarly, no. This sentence is grammatically correct.
There we go.
Hi friends, today for Toolbox, I'm going to teach you about the garbage can. And in the garbage can we say, I let the little things go. So the hard part about that is figuring out what is a little thing and how do I let it go. And on the other side you'll see that our picture is a garbage can. So we'll come back to this a little bit later. I want to start by explaining what I mean by the garbage can tool. So the garbage can tool is a way that we can, and it's also a place that we can throw out the unkind words and junky things that sometimes come our way in life. Not everything is always happy, right? Some not so awesome stuff happens sometimes. And these are irritations that distract us from the important things that are going on in life. And what's important is to know that other people's views of you and things that they say isn't what's important. It's your self-worth does not depend on them, right? You're in charge. And what you do matters, right? What you think matters. That's why we add that to our daily affirmation every day. Okay? With the garbage can tool, we can learn to reflect and decide how we react to situations. We can learn how to reconcile. That means we'll learn how to resolve or finish and close something that happened so that we can move on. But what is garbage? You say the garbage can tool, it makes me think, what is garbage? And really, I just mean, what is stuff that we put in the garbage? What do you think? Yeah, maybe it's paper towels that are super dirty. Maybe it's a plastic bag that we used and now it's covered in gross stuff, so we want to get rid of it. Yeah, maybe it's something you can't fix or repair and it just has to go in the garbage. Yeah, so it's stuff that we don't want anymore, right? When we don't want it anymore, we throw it in the garbage. And so that's how I want you to think about this tool, right? Some feelings we have or things that happen, we don't want to think about them anymore. We don't want to feel them anymore. And so you have to learn to throw it away and let it go. Okay? Those words and actions.
All right, I'll stop it there because the video is pretty lengthy. But these videos you can also find on the Toolbox website. if you keep an eye out for the home connections, there's a website on the bottom of those or within those that you can go on to. You can find more information about the tools that we talk about. This particular video was on YouTube. I just searched garbage can tool video. So it's pretty similar to what we would be doing in the classroom for the kiddos. And talk to your students about what it would feel like if you replayed a situation and you took the hurtful words or actions back. Feelings that don't go away, we talk about them, try to, with teachers, anybody at school that we can.
So the next tool that we're going to look at today is called the Taking Time tool, and it's very similar to a lot of our tools, including the garbage can, but the goal again is that we can decide how we react to situations. And our goal in helping the students is that they will be able to understand the emotions they're having and then make a decision to react in a way that doesn't hurt themselves or others or interrupt others or disrupt a classroom. So the Taking Time tool, the saying that goes with it is, I take time in and time away. So the person who created the toolbox, and this tool in particular, decided that there were two distinct ways that you could use time if you're having emotions that are too big for you to handle or they're causing you disruption in your life, basically. In the heat of the moment, maybe after an argument, when you're really frustrated, you might want to remove yourself to calm down or check in with yourself. That's the background idea. We want kids to be able to do this by themselves, but when we teach the tools, then that gives them a hand gesture, a name. The Taking Time tool has a little watch, so the gesture is to act like you're tapping a watch on your wrist, and we can help them in case they're having a time of emotional upset and they're not thinking yet that they could do this. We want to empower them so that the children we're working with in kindergarten and first grade and second grade, as they move through the grade levels, that they think about and use these tools. Because a lot of times they're used to someone telling them what to do and reminding them and telling them, and the goal again would be for them to do it on their own. So the more you can work with the kids with these types of tools at home, the more that will help them in the school setting and actually any setting for life. We would like them to use the tools before then they basically explode or disrupt, and that's a great goal that we have. And again, it says I take time in and time away. So the next slide has information about time away, and that one, sorry, I explained to the children it's taking a break. So time away, we don't want them to think it's a time out, but we want them to recognize that they need time away from a situation. And when I went in the classrooms to teach this to the younger grades, I pretended to be a student in their classroom. I just sat in an empty desk, and then I had another student do something that was distracting to me, like tap the desk with their fingers. And I told them, don't quit no matter what I say. So they're tapping and I'm pretending to do a homework assignment, and they keep tapping and they keep tapping. And finally I demonstrated getting up and walking over to the teacher and asking if I could be moved to a different spot or if I could have help with this situation. And this was after I had used my words, which using your words tool is another tool, and asked the other student, will you please stop tapping on my desk? I had, we talked about you could ignore the person. So this is kind of like a last ditch effort, but it comes after you've tried other things, and it comes before you get mad and yell at the person or cause a disruption. So you're physically removing yourself to create space away from other people. We talked about if students are out on the playground together and something's happening with the kids that they're playing with, that it's a big playground and there's a big field, and they could remove themselves from the situation. It could be this says during a conflict. It could be before the conflict even starts if they can see that. So the idea is that the time away that we can calm down, see how we're feeling, and think about what we're thinking, but we physically remove ourselves. So it's easy if we've already taught the other tools then to go back with the children and say, okay, when you're having this time away, what can you do? And we do, you know, they'll come up with breathing tool, which will help them relax, because it says we're going to calm down, and obviously something's happened that our emotions are rising up, and we need to take some time to do that. And some of them will say, well, it's like going to your quiet, safe place. And it is, but you're removing yourself physically to do that. And then some of the other tools they came up with, well, it's personal space. We're getting space between us. I mean, this is what's great about the toolbox, is linking all the different tools. But time away, taking time tool is getting away. And we also discuss things at home, perhaps if you have brothers or sisters, that you would remove yourself before you know something's going to end up in a fight with your brother or sister. So you actually don't have to ask at home to move to another spot like you do at school. And then one of the teachers reminded me that it was important for me to discuss with the children, students at school, it's not okay to just leave your classroom and say, well, I needed time away. It has to be prearranged, or you have to ask for permission on the spot. And she was a kindergarten teacher, which it kind of humbled me because I didn't even think of saying that, but they do need that kind of instruction so that they understand they can't just, because something's happening, walk out of the classroom. But that's the whole idea of that part of the tool. And then the other side is time in. And this seemed like it was a little bit harder to explain to young children, but once we started talking, of course, they're usually operating a few levels higher than we assume they are, so they got it. So time in is taking time in to check with ourselves to see what we need for ourselves and what we're doing, you know, as far as our feelings go. What are we thinking? Do we need to cool down internally? So instead of removing yourself, which would be time away, time in can happen and no one even knows you're doing it. So my example I used with the students was that you're a student in a class and you keep raising your hand and you know the answer and you keep raising your hand and your teacher's never calling on you and you're getting frustrated because you really know the answer and you wanted to say the answer. Taking time in would be checking with yourself, taking some deep breaths, using the breathing tool if you need to, and then you're thinking it through. So you could be thinking about the fact that, well, I didn't get called on this time, but I do know the answer and I know it's correct, so that's good. I'm learning. It's okay. I'll get called on next time. And just being able to reduce your frustration instead of then, you know, some kids will start raising their hand and they start making noises, or they'll gesture and be, you know, take a deep breath and be demonstrative to the other students that they're upset. And we talked about the idea that you can do this inside and you don't have to leave a situation. And then of course, I already mentioned, but you can use other tools to change how you feel. So this would be a case where in my mind, I could toss it in the trash or throw it in the garbage can. And what we're trying to do again is help students be able to do this before they get to a point of frustration that they disrupt others or they get angry that they can't control. And these are things that a lot of adults can't do. And I tell kids all the time, you're doing great. Like, you're learning this now, it's going to help you in the future, even when you're an adult. So that was what we referred to as time in. And then I spent a lot of time with the students on scenarios and would it be a time away or a time in, and what other tools could you use? What I was thinking about is if you're at home with your kids and you want to spend some time on these tools and really have an impact, I, as a child and most learners, like to have experiences ahead of time. Because when it's in the moment, sometimes it's hard to react in the way that you want. We all know that as humans. So if you give them some scenarios, and they could be scenarios for home or school, and then talk about, would this be a time away or a time in? And what other tools could you possibly use when this is happening? And I tried to pick things that relate to them, and then I would describe in more detail. So if you're working with your kids at home, you know, the first one is when you're feeling ready to explode. And most of the students would say, well, you need a time away. Because if you're that close to exploding, you would probably want to remove yourself from the situation. So you could teach your kids at home, like, what's a safe place, or where's a safe place to go, or what's the possible thing that you could do to get away from, again, a sibling when you're fighting, or those are the most common ones I can think of. You don't want your child, of course, like running away from you as a parent. That's not what it's about. But we want them to be able to manage emotions and feelings, and that's what all the tools do. So even if they're upset with their parent and you give them permission, they can remove themselves and then talk later. There's one of the books in the literature that's called On's Anger, and his grandpa has him go to his bedroom and think about his anger, and that's really a time away before he gets more angry. It's a good example. We talked about when you're feeling grumpy and you're really not sure why, and that's one that's a little harder for them to understand. Like, you're having kind of a bad day. Maybe something happened at home. I said maybe something happened at home before school, and even you're late to school and you're not happy about it. Well, we react differently to people when we're in a bad mood. And if everyone keeps saying to you, wow, you're in a bad mood today, you start to think, takes great insight, and a lot of adults don't have this, but we want them to learn, is that in that case, it would be like a time in, saying, I'm not really sure why I'm grumpy. Why am I so grumpy today? Why am I reacting that way? And taking some time, maybe some deep breaths, and then really listen to people. That's the listening tool. So all these different tools are coming in play. And then they start to realize that this person over here that they were a little bit angry with, it's not really that person, but it's them, that they're bringing something to the situation. And that's pretty significant if someone can do that. And if you can talk with your child about this, these are things they can learn. Like, you can't just know this stuff. And I always think if we can talk to them when they're young and they carry it with them, how wonderful that would be. There were a couple others, like when you keep getting into conflicts with others, or you've had a disagreement with a friend and they had differing views on that. I just remember, like, if they had a disagreement with their friends, some of them said, oh, I definitely need time away, and others are like, because they're very inventive, well, what if you're with your friend at their house by their swimming pool and you just got in some kind of argument? I can't just leave. And we talked about it. Well, yeah, you can't leave. So what are you going to think about in your mind while you take that time? And this slide has, like, when you feel like you want to hurt someone else, I mean, pretty severe, like, yes, you should have time away so that you have some time to cool down and think about what you're thinking and why you would be so intense with your emotions that you wanted to hurt someone. And this has the fighting with your brother or sister. And then after you explode, some of the students struggled with that one, but it's more like a time in where they would be reflective in their thinking and think, what just happened? Why did I just yell at my teacher and do whatever happened? Like, it takes some time and it takes more practice for something like that. But what I'm saying is, with all these different kind of things, if you could work with these kind of scenarios with your kids at home, even if they don't usually get upset, just throw them out as examples. I mean, they'll have different tools that they can use in case they end up in that situation. And then the person who created the tools was, wanting the emphasis on making sure that the children or students understand that it's not a timeout, because timeout is something different, and people use that with children, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the idea of this tool is about the child being able to maintain their emotions, or think about their emotions before and after things happen. So again, it's called Taking Time Tool, and the gesture is just to point to your wrist. And I know some of the kids really like the gestures. I've been surprised by that. So, you know, that's a instance in a classroom where if the teacher can gesture to a student, like take some time without saying it, then it just helps the class run so much smoothly and they don't have to stop what they're doing. So taking time in and time away.
All right. Before I get onto the please and thank you tool, I will share a little parenting tip that I use with my kids. Susie, something you said prompted my brain. We had a code system set up with our kids if they went to a friend's house, especially if they're going to spend the night, and something goes wrong, and they can't work through it and they can't fix it, and they are ready to come home. They just go to the parent that's at the household and say they feel very sick, they feel like they're going to throw up, and could you please call my mom or dad and let them know, because nobody wants a puking kid in their house. So if you need to save face a little bit and your child needs to know it's okay to call it early if it's really a problematic situation, then you can use my little parenting tip, and then nobody's none the wiser. So anyway, please and thank you tool. The tagline is, I treat others with kindness and appreciation. So we all know please and thank you is pretty basic stuff, but it's amazing how many kids don't use those words all the time. Some parents are very good at practicing at home and having their children use what we call the magic words. But sometimes kids just need reminders too. They just forget to do it at school sometimes. And so we explain to the kids that these words are pretty powerful. They aren't just those magic words, but they help express gratitude to other people, allows us to give thanks, and show that kindness and generosity, and that makes people feel good. We all like that. So the symbol is like some keys. So we just show the kid like real keys. And most kids, when you ask them, what do keys do, they say all kinds of fun things. But usually they get to the place where it locks or unlocks doors or starts cars or things like that. So the key in the hand gesture is we pretend like we're holding a key in our hand, just like an old-fashioned key, and we just unlock the door. And when we unlock the door, that allows sort of intimacy and that connection with other people, and again, that kindness and appreciation that we want to demonstrate. The being genuine and authentic, and I do try to get the kids to practice, not just saying it to say it, but kind of like, why are you saying it? Like, are you thanking somebody for holding the door for you? Because that's great. Thank them. Say thank you for holding the door. That was kind. If you want something, to say please, and and put meaning into it. Don't just say it at the tail end of the conversation because you're like, oh, I have to say it, but like generally ask, may I have that please? And that does often impact us in an intimate way, and makes us as adults often want to try to give the child what they ask for if they ask nicely. Not that they're always going to get their way, but they have a better chance of getting what they want if they ask for it using the word please. So the objective of the tool is just to kind of weave it into the everyday awareness and vocabulary. Again, a little bit ties in with some of those other tools, right? So kind of that empathy tool, we want to care about others, so we can thank somebody when they do a kind gesture for us. We can look for maybe an opportunity to do something for somebody else, to have them feel grateful. So when we use the words please and thank you, we want to be careful of the quality and the tone of our voices, our body language, just kind of that basic, the facial and body gestures that go with it. So that helps develop that respect for not just ourselves, but for other people too. And we read this book, for the younger kids anyway, where I really like the page that says in the story, you can't say please often enough. And then you flip the page and there's like, I don't know, 25 pleases all over the page, all over the book, and it just says please, 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 and you know, you just repeat it numerous times. And then it says, oh, okay, maybe you can say it too often. And that's a great place to help the kids understand it's not about begging and whining and trying to get their way. And so that goes back to that, our tone and our genuine authenticity of when we use those words, to use them in a way that's meaningful. And usually one please is often enough to use. So that's kind of a great way to go about it. So ask your child if they think people prefer to be asked to do something or be ordered to do something. So what I do with the kids is we'll practice, like, if I were to say with my tone and my the way I said it, Billy, go hold the door. That sounds very orderly, and the child might comply because you're the adults and you're kind of telling them what to do. But it's so, you can just really soften that tone and just, you know, change that tone and use that word, please. Billy, would you please go hold the door for me? And then usually you often get compliance that way, and it makes the child feel good. So saying please, asking for something with more kind gestures, kind of feels like the kid's not being bossed around too. So I talk about that a lot with siblings who, you know, I remember as a kid saying it and hearing it that you aren't the boss of me. So siblings sometimes can be very directive, and especially older ones to the younger ones can kind of like do that intimidating, like, I'm in charge here, so you're going to do what I say. But you actually often get more cooperation if you use it, the word please and thank you. But when you ask somebody to do something, saying nicely, could you please do this for me? It's harder for people to say no. And then when the adults use these words, we model it again for them. We want to let the children know, you know, that we practice and we use it in our day-to-day life too. And that developmentally, children go through the stages in which kindness and civility don't always appear in their vocabulary. Sometimes we have different kids with different personalities. Some kids can just kind of in their normal tone sound demanding or bossy. So helping them by modeling, listening to us use those words, they might be able to more appropriately intertwine the please and thank you vocabulary into their day-to-day living as well. So at home, for parents and guardians, you can, you know, just remind other family members to use the words as well. So if you have multiple children or you have a significant other, just catching opportunities to kind of just, you know, what's the magic word? You know, maybe ask nicely first before they kind of get what they want. So if they say, I want a cookie, you know, you're like, okay, maybe try that again. What's a kind way to ask? And they'll hopefully add that please word and ask in an appropriate way. And then it's also good to talk as a family about things you're grateful for. And it's always, you know, just kind of a feel good kind of activity as a family too, to just stop and pause about, you know, what is going well? What am I thankful for? And it can be just the simplest of things. You know, somebody made your breakfast that morning, or, you know, your clothes were washed and laid out for you. And that was, you know, they're really grateful. Just, it's nice to really pause and remember the little things that we do appreciate day to day. And again, making your child kind of pause and think about their day and what did go well, and to be grateful for that. And use that hand gesture at home. You can, again, you can, you know, remind your child to use the please and thank you tool, or if they remember the hand gesture, that can be a little, just real quick hand signal. Uh-oh, you gotta unlock that magic door. Use those please and thank you words. So it's a good little visual. So that concludes the 3 tools for this video for today. So thank you for watching our Toolbox tools. This hopefully, what are we up to? 9 tools now with part 3?
We have 3. Yeah, so our last one will we'll be recording it again on May 18th, so you guys will have it before the end of the school year, before your kids are out. So that way you guys have it for the summer. And then I wanted to say too, I will include the YouTube video for the garbage can tool. And I will give it to the other counselors as well. They can post it on Class Dojo or our newsletters or wherever they post the good stuff. And then if you have any questions related to the tools, just reach out to your child's counselor. We will explain them in detail, or if you have any other concerns or anything, just let us know.
Thank you.
All right, let's see if I can do this.